Welcome. As Dean of the Stanford University School of Medicine, I take enormous pleasure in welcoming families, friends, faculty, and staff to this first ever virtual celebration of our graduates. Our graduating class this year is in so many ways unique. No Stanford Medicine class has ever dealt with the uncertainty and the turmoil that you have faced. For our MD graduates, your match day was a virtual event. We gather virtually today and not as a group in a tent on the alumni lawn. I share your disappointment about the loss of these wonderful communal celebrations, but I hope you are celebrating with undiminished joy this enormous accomplishment, surrounded by family and loved ones. The COVID-19 pandemic serves as a defining moment for you. It is a transformative milestone in each of your professional lives. For months now, many of the world's basic and clinical scientists have made combating the pandemic their overriding singular focus. Yet we don't know nearly as much about this virus as we would hope. This disease has humbled so many in biomedicine, and I must include myself. Perhaps the single most jolting aspect of this pandemic for me has been the way in which it has thrown a searing light into the ugly corners of racial and ethnic disparities that delineate health and health care in America. 3 months after the first COVID fatalities occurred in the United States, a Yale University study found that, accounting for age, across the country, mortality for Black people from COVID is 3.5 times higher than for whites, and Latinx mortality is nearly twice as high. From these numbers and others, a subtle but devastating understanding of the coronavirus began to emerge. Just as AIDS in the 1980s was so often disparagingly labeled as the gay disease, so COVID began to be perceived as a disease of urban populations, of people of color, and the poor. Suddenly, we saw the onset of anti-lockdown protests, some of which played out as armed confrontations. And the national conversation changed. Containing the outbreak became not a question of shared social responsibility, but of personal choice. Wealthy people could self-isolate in their homes. The poor would need to brave mass transit and risk their health to remain employed. This is the America we live in, where currently we can more accurately predict morbidity, mortality, and health outcomes by zip code than by genetic code. And if the pandemic created a time of needing to acknowledge these brazen disparities, the horrific killing of George Floyd marked the moment when none of us could any longer look away. A week ago, I knelt with Stanford Healthcare CEO David Entwistle, Stanford Children's Health CEO Paul King, and hundreds from the Stanford Medicine community for 8 minutes and 46 seconds of silence in memory of George Floyd and too many others. After that rally for racial justice, we 3 leaders made a public pledge declaring enough is enough. We promised we will not be silent, and we will use our influence to effect real, meaningful change. And so today, for me personally, and I cannot help but believe for all of us, the great work lies ahead. This is the moment of your graduation. This is the world you now enter. I hope it will not surprise you when I say how very hopeful I am today, for each of you individually and for our society as a whole. There is a phenomenon known to iron workers for thousands of years. An ingot heated in a forge to 1,000 degrees centigrade glows from its heat. Remove it, and as it cools, it slowly ceases to glow. But then suddenly, at about 800 degrees, the metal brightens. Momentarily, it turns red hot again as the molecular structure of the iron rearranges itself, an exothermic reaction generating both heat and light. This moment is known as recoalescence, a burning again. When it is finished, the qualities of the iron are profoundly and permanently changed. What we have witnessed and experienced in the past few weeks has been sometimes almost too much to bear. But I don't see this as the final conflagration of our society or the end of our ongoing experiment in democracy. Rather, I present this to you as a singular moment of societal recoalescence, a painful instant when things burn hot and bright, while underneath, profound and permanent changes are preparing to take place. As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. taught us, the moral arc of the universe is long, but bends towards justice. Experienced ironworkers know that recoalescence does not mark the arrival of inevitable destiny. It is rather a moment of opportunity, when the new structure of the metal can be shaped and determined. Let us rise to this moment in history to do the same. We are a society very much in need of healing, and you, our graduates of 2020, physicians, physician assistants, master's degree recipients, and PhDs, are ultimately dedicating your lives to helping heal. You are the leaders of tomorrow, forged in the crisis of today. Through your education and experiences, you will heal us, protect us, and enable us to live longer, healthier lives. Today, I thank you in advance for all you will do to change the world. Godspeed, graduates. You will do great things. I hope you will always be proud of your Stanford education, just as I know Stanford will always be proud of you. We will now hear remarks from Dr. Iris Gibbs, Professor of Radiation Oncology and, by courtesy, of Neurosurgery. Dr. Gibbs is the Associate Dean of MD Admissions in the School of Medicine.
People often say, years from now, you won't remember your graduation, who the speaker was, what they said. But in many ways, we all remember because they say the same thing. They say this is called commencement, marking the start of something new, or you're leaving memories of the past to embark on a new journey. But for the graduating class of 2020, this common notion of the forgettable graduation will certainly be different. The experiences of these past few months and weeks alone will be so indelibly etched into the archives of history that none of us will forget. There are just a few comparable instances in history that hold such power of memory. The death of John F. Kennedy, the death of Martin Luther King Jr., 9/11, and the election of Barack Obama. Those who witnessed these experiences recall all the details. Maya Angelou said, "People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel." So like many graduations before, you may forget what I have said. But I know that you will never forget how you feel in this moment. At this moment, today, I hope you are filled with gratitude, a feeling of pride, a sense of optimism, and most of all, a renewed sense of mission and purpose. I certainly hold gratitude for all that you have taught me about resilience and commitment to social justice. This graduating class of MD students holds special value for me. You represent the majority of the students from my first year as Associate Dean. In so many ways, we've learned and grown together. We confronted challenges that tested our resolve. We celebrated together, we marched together, and at times even we cried together. I am thrilled to see you realize the promise that we all knew you had, becoming the leaders of today and the future. You are fierce. You challenge the status quo. In doing so, you have made this institution better. I am incredibly proud. Congratulations, and I love you. Best wishes. Watch out, world. Here they come. the Stanford Medicine graduating class of 2020.
Our keynote speaker for today's celebration is Dr. Yvonne Maldonado. Dr. Maldonado is a professor of pediatrics and of epidemiology and population health. She is the Senior Associate Dean for Faculty Development and Diversity, and she is leading our clinical initiatives related to COVID-19. Dr. Maldonado.
Thank you, Dean Miner. If a house is on fire, no one wastes time putting water on nearby houses just in case the fire spreads. They rush to pour water where it will do the most good, on the burning house. Dear class of 2020, these words ring true for us today. They were written in the book House on Fire by Dr. William Fagey, a noted physician, epidemiologist, and former CDC director, who spearheaded the eradication of the highly virulent disease smallpox from the face of the earth in 1977. Fagey recounted these words spoken by a young Indian physician as one of the key lessons learned from the global smallpox eradication effort. It is prescient that the metaphor of a house on fire has also recently been used to explain the urgency and necessity of the Black Lives Matter movement. The lesson of the house on fire appears deceptively simple in comparison to the great feat of eradicating smallpox, the only human infectious disease to have that distinction. We can only begin to grasp the contemporary significance of this simple lesson when we recognize that our current public health systems and the broader socio-political systems in which they are rooted are still not fully equipped to put out the smoldering fires that are burning slowly beneath the surface of our global home. That is, we must be ready to recognize and rush to the burning house in order to do the most good. Today, we are facing the collision of two equally devastating plagues, although these were both created in very different ways by humankind. One, a pandemic born of hate and violence, and the other born of denial and indifference. As a result, you, more than any class in at least the last century, are facing a new world and a new normal that is yet to come. In a sense, the emergence of these two pandemics was both unpredictable and unprecedented. Predictable because COVID-19 is only the most recent in a long line of emerging infectious diseases, while racial violence is a product of the long-standing normalization of systemic and institutionalized racism. In 2017, Bill Gates predicted that we were unprepared for a coming pandemic and that preparedness should be a global priority. Similarly, racial violence and racism were inherent in the very founding of our great nation. And yet, we ignored the smoldering house. While predictable, these pandemics are also unprecedented in the current scope and depth of their dual impact on our global family, the result of a burning house left untended. While we have yet to conquer these two epidemics, I believe we are well on our way to taking those first steps to a new and better normal, one in which you will play a significant role. Graduates, as rising scientists and medical professionals, you will no doubt find yourselves in leadership positions where you will be called on to respond to the next unprecedented and perhaps unforeseen challenge. I have full confidence in the knowledge that you will overcome such future challenges. An important fundamental lesson that you will learn must be to recognize that positive change does not happen by accident. As Fagey puts it, the coordinated action of a group of dedicated people can plan for and bring about a better future. The lessons of the art and science of medicine imparted to you at Stanford will serve you well in this regard. Despite the important role you can all play as individuals, you must also recognize that change can only be catalyzed when individuals work as a coalition towards a common goal. I encourage you to think about how your unique experiences, education, and training fit in with that of your fellow graduates and other individuals in other walks of life to advance the common goal of eradicating the medical and social pandemics at hand. I would also ask you to consider how you can use your medical training and the privilege that comes with it to amplify the voices of your coalition partners that often go unheard. Faggy relates that some aspects of the smallpox eradication effort may have been better guided, for example, by program managers and not scientists or physicians. It is important to remember that sometimes the best contribution we can make is to create space for others best equipped to execute the next part of the plan, especially when it comes to members of the team that have traditionally been disempowered by our society. As different as the COVID-19 and racial violence pandemics are from one another, they have both shown us the importance of building diverse, equitable, and inclusive coalitions. They have shown us the dangers of marginalizing select populations. It is not enough for diversity, equity, and inclusion to be an optional add-on or to exist in some name only. These principles have to be the foundation upon which any strategy is built. Building these principles into national and global strategies begins with your everyday actions as burgeoning leaders in healthcare. You have the opportunity to leverage both your personal and professional identities to create inclusive and productive teams to catalyze change. Over 30 years ago, I sat in the Grant Courtyard with the rest of my Stanford School of Medicine classmates, eager to start my career, but unsure of the path my life would take. As I am doing today, I was fortunate to address the graduating class as the MD student commencement representative. I recall the uncertainties of that time when we were concerned, among other things, about impending nuclear threat. As my class representative, I polled the class and was fortunate to invite Helen Caldecott, the founder of Physicians for Social Responsibility, to be our commencement speaker. Founded in 1961 and reinvigorated by Dr. Caldecott in 1978, Physicians for Social Responsibility, which was later awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1985, works to protect human life from the gravest threats to health and survival. It is the medical and public health voice for policies to prevent nuclear war and proliferation and to slow, stop, and reverse global warming and toxic degradation of the environment. While we face some of the same concerns today that we did when I graduated from Stanford, it is heartening to realize that since that time, we have also come together as a community of scientists and medical professionals to combat not only medical afflictions, but social and societal ones as well. As I look back at the aspirations of my graduating class and our subsequent challenges and successes, I want you to recognize that while your training will provide guiding principles for addressing future challenges, your path will come with uncertainty and, unfortunately, with no blueprint. However, you will learn to innovate in spite of and even thrive as a result of this uncertainty. Keep in mind that your intellect, training, and privilege have also equipped you to make contributions with the lens of overcoming systemic biases and to implement health reforms to reduce health disparities. As you embark on your careers, I urge you to think about how you can apply the lessons you have learned at Stanford to a wide range of challenges, big and small. Graduates, how will you choose to contribute to the better future we all long for? As Faggy notes, the smallpox eradication program demonstrates that humanity does not have to live in a world of plagues, disastrous governments, conflict, and uncontrolled health risks. The coordinated actions of a group of dedicated people can plan for and bring about a better future. We should settle for nothing less. In these unprecedented times, you should derive hope from and optimism from these words and know that the future of our global health is in your capable hands. In closing, I would also like to add my thanks to all of the families, significant others, and friends of this remarkable graduating class for your support in making this day possible. Once again, I offer my sincere and hearty congratulations to the Stanford University School of Medicine Coronial Class of 2020. I am proud to consider myself one of your colleagues, and I know that our future is in excellent hands with all of you at the helm. Thank you and welcome to our noble professions.
Thank you, Dr. Maldonado. We will next hear remarks from our faculty leaders who supervise our educational programs. Dr. Neil Gesundheit, Senior Associate Dean for Medical Education. Dr. Will Talbot, Senior Associate Dean for Graduate Education and Postdoctoral Affairs. And Dr. Susan Fernandez, Director for the Master of Science in PA Studies program.
On behalf of the faculty and staff of the School of Medicine, I want to congratulate the medical graduates of the class of 2020. After passing 30 courses and 12 clerkships, 100 tests and in-person assessments, after suffering 2 or 3 national board exams, after absorbing punishing feedback from scores of residents and faculty, after completing a scholarly concentration, and after paying $200,000 of tuition, the School of Medicine has decided that you have made it. The stethoscope name tag that was mailed to you is for real. You can add those long sought-after initials to the back of your name for now and forever. You know that the initials MD stand for much deserved as much as they do for medical doctor. Congratulations to you and your loved ones. It's amazing how much you have grown on the road to becoming a physician. I remember reading your medical school essays and how you mentioned, in different phrasings but with equal idealism, your interest in science and medicine and your goal to apply the knowledge you would gain to alleviating human suffering and treating disease. I remember when you first put on your white coats and placed the stethoscope in your pockets. It was a sunny, warm day in August, your families were on the alumni lawn, and you were bursting with pride. Your dream had started. I remember your first day in anatomy. You were assigned to a cadaver, to a noble person who had sacrificed their body for your use to promote your education. I remember the gratitude you felt and the reverence you showed for that person. I remember when you first looked at human tissue under the microscope, when you first learned the difference between systole and diastole. I remember when you first understood the molecular basis for genetic disease and how a change in a base pair could give an otherwise healthy person a dreadful illness. You were in awe, but you learned how vulnerable we all are. I remember that you were surprised by how soft heart sounds were and that you needed to listen very carefully, even with the magical stethoscope. I remember the wow when you heard your first murmur, the wow when you felt your first liver edge, the wow when you completed your first history and physical in under an hour. I remember when you started clerkships and felt that you could finally put your knowledge to use with a real patient. I remember that you did medicine and surgery, or medicine and pediatrics, or pediatrics and surgery back to back, and barely had time to do your laundry. I remember that you were exhilarated to save a life, exasperated to lose one, exhausted at the end, but proud that you could now do a history and physical in 25 minutes and be a true asset to your patients and team. I remember that while your team was glued to the computer station and workroom obtaining data, you were the one by the bedside getting to know the patient who was ill rather than an illness that happened to be in a patient. I remember the pride and satisfaction you felt when the patient looked in your eyes and said you were their doctor. And I remember the glow you felt when you used your knowledge to make that patient better. Those may not all be your memories, and you undoubtedly have many others. I will confess that some of them are mine. We hope that most of your memories are fond ones, and I hope you can retain your fond memories of Stanford, of the way you developed your skills and did not lose the idealism and optimism you felt on that sunny August day when you first put on your white coat. And I hope you will remember your commitment expressed in your medical school essay to apply your knowledge to alleviating human suffering and treating disease. I hope that part sticks with you forever. On behalf of our Stanford family of educators, I want to express the privilege we feel to have shared these years with you. We are facing a country and world in need of people who care about people, regardless of their means, what they look like, what they believe in, or where they come from. You have earned a powerful credential. Use it wisely and make sure you unleash its full power to repair our country and world. We will miss you, and we hope you know that Stanford Medicine is here to back you forever.
Welcome and congratulations to all of our graduates. As we celebrate today, we consider these unprecedented times. Even as the pandemic began to unfold, few appreciated how the impact of COVID-19 would reach into every facet of our lives. But we will move past this crisis, and as we do, I hope that a renewed appreciation for science remains as a lasting good to come from having endured adversity. Scientists and their discoveries, so often hidden in labs, are now daily headline news. The general public is actively discussing antibodies, PCR tests, epidemiology, drug development, and vaccine. Everyone sees how scientists and healthcare professionals, many here at Stanford, including some of our graduates, are collaborating to overcome a devastating pandemic with unprecedented speed. Against this backdrop, graduates, you are being thrust onto center stage. Long after the current crisis has passed, society will continue to depend on you to address global challenges, some looming large before us, others that we can now only barely imagine. I am certain that you all are ready to face these challenges. You all have become experts in your fields. You have dedicated long hours to demanding coursework and painstaking experiments. You have experienced the joy of making important discoveries, and you have advanced the frontiers of your fields. You embody the spirit of discovery. You have shown special resilience in completing your studies under difficult circumstances. So today, we celebrate your achievements and we recognize your inspiring ability, dedication, and resilience. And we are proud to call you our colleagues. As society continues to turn to science to address pressing challenges, I know that you will be there to answer the call. Graduates, it has been an honor to serve as your representative in the Dean's office. I wish you all the very best in your remaining time here at Stanford and beyond.
Graduate family, friends, and colleagues, it is an honor to be with you today to acknowledge and celebrate the achievements of our School of Medicine graduates. They have proven to be hardworking, determined, and resilient individuals. I want to acknowledge that today's celebration is not the commencement that we hoped for. I am sure, like me, you are disappointed that we are not celebrating in person. At a pandemic that has shined a light on healthcare disparities and socioeconomic inequalities in our country, and the recent police brutality that has provided a wake-up call to ongoing systemic racial injustice, and today is probably a mix of a lot of emotions. However, I am optimistic and extremely hopeful for our future. Today, I'm incredibly proud as we honor the accomplishments of 27 MSPA graduates. Over the past 2.5 years, these students have immersed themselves in their education and scholarly work. After the first 5 quarters of didactic learning, where they were actually required to be in class up to 30 hours per week, they headed out for 12 months of clinical training, working 40 to 60 hours per week at sites within the Stanford healthcare community and at Pioneers Memorial Hospital in Brawley, California, a unique rural experience 10 miles from the Mexican border. Outside of the classroom, these remarkable students have shared their talents in writing, art, acting, dancing, baking, and sports. And they have volunteered hundreds of hours to their community via the Flu Crew, Cardinal-Free clinics, and bone marrow and blood drives. They have accomplished this all while working on their leadership track coursework and capstone projects. Their projects have examined mental health issues, healthcare disparities, opioid abuse, elder abuse, telemedicine, and global health issues, to name a few. This work has resulted in invitations to present at regional, national, and international meetings and in publications. These 27 MSPA students have clearly taken full advantage of everything that Stanford has to offer. 5 years ago, when Rhonda Larson and I were developing this new graduate program under the guidance of Charles Prober, we knew that an interprofessional component would be essential for success. We believe that having MD and MSPA students learning side by side would make them better clinicians when they would later be working side by side, providing patient care. I am here to tell you today that this curriculum integration has been a huge success, thanks to the unwavering support by the School of Medicine leadership, the Clinical Anatomy Division, and the Practice of Medicine course leaders. And most importantly, by the MD students who welcomed our students with open arms. We appreciate all of you who played a part, big or small, in that success. As I mentioned, despite our troubling times, I remain optimistic and hopeful. In 2016, I, along with our admissions committee, believed that these 27 MSPA students had the potential to be exceptional clinicians and future healthcare leaders. Today, I believe that they have the knowledge, skills, and leadership ability to make a powerful, much-needed difference during these difficult times. From caring for COVID-19 patients on the front lines, to highlighting and addressing disparities in healthcare, to advocating for healthcare access for all, and by standing up to racism and social injustice. I believe that these 27 students can make that difference, and for that, I am optimistic and hopeful. On behalf of the MSPA program, faculty, and staff, congratulations to the MSPA graduates for becoming certified PAs. We wish you the best of luck. Go make us proud.
We will now hear remarks from our student speakers. Paloma Marin Navarez, MD speaker, Tawan Lucas, PhD speaker, and Zachary Stone, MSPA speaker.
On my admission to the practice of medicine, I pledge to devote my life to the service of humanity.
The care of my patients will be my first consideration.
I will strive to acquire and share new knowledge
with my colleagues and my patients.
I will practice my profession
with conscience and dignity,
and to the best of my ability and judgment.
I will approach each patient with charity, attention,
humility, and commitment.
I will hold all life dear and let knowledge, wisdom,
courage, and compassion guide my therapy.
I will use my medical knowledge
and skills to promote human rights,
social justice, and civil liberties.
I will not permit considerations of age,
disease, or disability,
faith, ethnic origin,
gender identity, nationality, race,
sexual orientation, social standing,
or other forms of discrimination to intervene
between my duty and my patient.
I will respect the confidences with which I will be entrusted.
I will give gratitude and respect to those from whom
I have learned my science and my art.
I will uphold the integrity of the medical profession.
I will cultivate peace in both personal conduct
and political expression.
I will not use my knowledge contrary to the spirit of this affirmation. I make these promises in witness of those who have stood here before me
and those who will come after.
Solemnly, freely,
and upon my honor.
As I embark on my career as a scientist, I willingly pledge
that I will practice and support a scientific process that is based on logic, intellectual rigor,
personal integrity, and an uncompromising respect for truth. I will perform my professional activities and interactions with a scientific integrity
and respect for the field and my peers. I will acknowledge that science involves failures
and can be frustrating. Thus, I will treat myself and my colleagues with kindness and with compassion as we deal with temporary setbacks
on the path to progress. I will acknowledge my role as an ambassador of science to the public and
strive to be honest, respectful, and unbiased while engaging the public. I will never let the potential for personal recognition,
profit, or advancement cause me to act in a way that violates the public trust in science or in me as a scientist.
I will foster a community that is inclusive of all and recognize that diversity cultivates innovation, creativity, and progress.
I will acknowledge and honor the contributions of scientists who have preceded me
and become a worthy role model deserving of respect by those who follow me. And I will always be cognizant that
my work is for the advancement of knowledge and the benefit of all humanity and our world.
We just heard the affirmations, the Stanford affirmation for our MD and MSPA students, and the Biosciences affirmation for our PhD students. We will now hear remarks from our student speakers. Paloma Maureen Nevarez, MD speaker, Tawan Lucas, PhD speaker, and Zachary Stone, MSPA speaker.
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon, graduates, families, faculty, and staff. I interrupt your regularly scheduled Netflix binges, DIY haircuts, and TikTok challenge marathons to bring you this commencement speech. My name is Paloma Marin Nevarez, and I am honored to be the MD student speaker for the 162nd graduating class of the Stanford School of Medicine, and the very first graduating class of the Zoom University School of Medicine. It sucks that we can't gather to celebrate today, but for the first time in Stanford Medicine history, you can relive your favorite pre-clean memories and watch this speech at 2x speed. Let's be real, class of 2020. This was absolutely not the way that we envisioned medical school ending. Maybe we are cursed, class of 2020. First, we finished clerkships right before the shiny new hospital opened. Step 1 is now becoming pass-fail. Step 2 CS got canceled and refunded. And we missed out on listening to Dr. John Soleil live while opening our red envelopes on match day. And now we don't get to gather together for one last perreo at the patio. But in the spirit of reframing, we aren't cursed, class of 2020. In fact, you are one special, intelligent, beautiful, resilient snack of a class. You are classy, bougie, and a little ratchet. Without a doubt, the next leaders in patient care, research, and health policy are graduating today. Some of you are graduating with multiple degrees. Some of you have startups. Some of you got married, started families, while some of us are still waiting for a text back. But in all seriousness, we are graduating during an extremely challenging time, a time that is going to require a lot from us. First off, I want to validate your grief and sense of loss in that you missed out on what was supposed to finally be the reward for your hard work following 2 or more decades of delayed gratification. I hope you've given yourself permission and space to feel those feelings without guilt. This COVID-19 pandemic has and will continue to set what feels like insurmountable challenges. For one, we're facing a lot of misinformation, and many people are putting their lives and the lives of others in danger, largely because they have not learned to see how the same systems they uphold, in fact, actively work against them too. It is important to remember that doctor also means teacher, and you will be called to extend an empathetic ear even towards patients whose views you may not agree with. In an extremely divisive time, we as physicians have a duty to remember our oath and to care for all of our patients equitably. That being said, we are graduating to confront systems that have historically failed the poor and failed people of color. This pandemic has made it more clear than ever that America was not built for everyone and is in critical need of reform. We live in an America where Black, Latinx, and Indigenous patients are dying at disproportionate rates from this virus. Beyond the pandemic, we live in an America where immigrant children are put in cages. We live in an America that can still discriminate against you based on your gender identity and sexual orientation. We live in an America where being Black means not being able to jog outside without being afraid for your life. Currently, there are physicians in positions of leadership who disagree on the responsibility of physicians to engage in social justice. I want to remind you that Dr. Rudolf Virchow himself, yes, that guy that everything in medicine is named after, identified the physician as the natural attorney of the poor. As newly graduated physicians in 2020, this means an incredible responsibility to advocate for and care for all of our patients, and turning a blind eye to systemic injustice is a disservice to them. This is a lot of pressure on you, graduating class of 2020, and I will be the first to admit that this is scary. However, having seen what you've accomplished already in your early careers, I cannot think of a braver, more equipped set of new physicians to step up to the challenge. Entering residency is equal parts scary and exciting. Scary because it will be your first time signing your own orders. Scary because you'll have to start making decisions that will influence the health of actual human beings. Scary because Dr. G won't be there to save you anymore. But also, it is exciting as you will now get to introduce yourself as doctor. Exciting as you enter the room confidently, do a thorough HNP just like your E4C taught you, diagnose any illness and choose the right treatment by remembering those bicycles and red stools from Sketchy Micro. Exciting as you unlock the power of your degree to advocate for patients that need you. If there's anything that you remember from this speech, class of 2020, is this: you've got this. We've got this. As the first graduating class of physicians in the middle of this pandemic, I have no doubt that you will work tirelessly and often at the expense of your own well-being. You cannot do everything perfectly, and you cannot do everything alone. You will make mistakes. But please do not forget to take care of yourselves because you are much more than your career. You are valuable. So for now, it's goodbye to our classmates, goodbye to our mentors, and goodbye to that latest HIPAA training you never completed. Before you get back to baking more bread than you'll be able to eat in a whole month, don't forget to thank your friends, thank your mentors, and thank your family, at a safe distance, of course, without whom you could not have made it there. Para todas las familias hispanohablantes y para mi mamá, gracias, gracias, gracias por todo. I wish you all a magical day of celebration for all of your accomplishments. Do not let this quarantine take away your shine. Congratulations, class of 2020.
I want to start off first by saying thank you all for inviting me to represent you. I am truly honored and humbled that you chose me. I think we all can agree that these times are wildly unprecedented, so it's even more important that we take time out to celebrate the great things that are still happening in our lives. Congratulations, y'all. We made it. It's kind of ironic to me that my graduate career is started and now ending in a health crisis. Good thing we're graduating a bunch of scientists and doctors here today. This is even more impressive and extremely important as we are in an age where misinformation and misrepresentation of science is on a rise. It's hard to work when people are constantly doubting the science that you're doing. Yet, we still made it. Grad school hasn't been easy, and I'm sure it's been a wild ride for many of us. In our 4 to 20 years here, we gained lifetime friends, mentors. Some of us found partners, some had kids, and we got one hell of a quality education. But I think most importantly, we gained a considerable amount of resilience. And that's even more reason to celebrate, because that trait doesn't come easy. Some of us got this resilience through long hours in lab, some through repeated failed experiments, reviewer number 3, some through months of no data, straining advisor relationships, reviewer number 3. But we all doubled down on our resilient deposit through what we had to endure outside of academia, and we still made it. We dealt with one of the loudest and most emotional presidential races of our lives, yet we still made it. We experienced the birth of the Me Too and Black Lives Matter movements that stirred a considerable amount of emotions in many of us. Even here, I'm giving this speech on the cascade of recent deaths of unarmed Black Americans at the hands of police officers. Breonna Taylor, sleeping while Black. Ahmaud Arbery, jogging while Black. George Floyd, encountering police while Black. And even though in solidarity, I can't breathe, we can't breathe, we still made it. I'm not saying that some of us weren't resilient before getting to this point, but I can say that without a doubt, now we are, all of us. And that's amazing, because resilience can't be taught. You have to earn it. It's a byproduct of all the things we've been through to get to this point. I started my journey into resilience growing up in Compton, California, battling stigmas, battling a failed education system, battling a failed policing system, and battling all the opportunities that were presented to me to succumb. For you, it might be different, but you know what? We made it here. You made it here to this point. Be proud. You are resilient. But now, what do? Having this amazing virtue doesn't come without responsibility. I believe we now have an obligation to pay it forward. And no, I'm not talking about going out and creating adversity for younger students. I'm talking about sharing your story about how you made it here. I'm talking about empowering others to keep pushing, to keep driving, to be better and to do better. Although there may be many times where you felt like you were by yourself in the struggle of grad school, the reality is we didn't get through it alone. While some of us may have had a little more help than others, we are now all obliged to make sure that no one in our future exit system feels like they are alone and have no one to turn to for help. We need to aid in building resilience in others because life is hard. The world is ever changing and new challenges will arise, but we have this new superpower of resilience to help us endure, and that should be shared. This is a goal of mine, and I'm charging you to begin to incorporate this into your life as well. Take a second to think about a time when a friend, a mentor, a coach helped you endure. For me, I'm thinking of times that include some of you watching this right now. Take that feeling, take those words, take that experience, pay it forward. Although we don't have the traditional pomp and circumstance that's usually in place here today, building resilience in others will now be our way that we should continue to celebrate our accomplishments every day. And to double down on my charge to you, and because I think every commencement speech I've ever heard had some sort of quote in it, I'll use the words of my homegirl, Michelle Obama. When you've worked hard and done well and walked through that doorway of opportunity, you don't slam it shut behind you. You reach back and give other folks the same chances that helped you succeed. Let's go out and help build resilience in others. We sure do have enough of it. Thank you.
My name's Zach, and I am part of the inaugural Physician Assistant program here at Stanford. Maybe a stream ceremony isn't all that bad, because you can mute me at any time. COVID has made these difficult times, but I'm proud to be joining a field among those truly making a difference. I'm sure many of you work with or know those on the front lines of this crisis, so I thank them. I'll start by talking about my research at Stanford, because part of being a student here is inserting your research into every conversation. I interviewed PAs at Stanford to determine the extent of their burnout. I found burnout was widespread and worsening, which worried me. The burnout was as real as the amount of people currently baking banana bread. Had I chosen the wrong career? In my interviews, one PA emphasized, "No one understands PA school besides your fellow classmates." And I agree. I don't remember any specific lectures, although I wish I did. But I do remember the early mornings in LK, complaining on the fourth floor between classes, happy hours, football games, with the common denominator being my classmates. I don't actually miss PA school, sorry Dr. Fernandez, But I missed the collective stress when Stephen carried his engagement ring around school for a full day, or joining in on the laughs the 10th time a lecturer said to me, "You look confused. Do you have a question?" And I reply, "That's just how my face always looks. So no." And when the police arrived at the doorstep of one of our gatherings, only to find a house of students shouting, "Now that she's back in the atmosphere with drops of Jupiter in her hair." On karaoke. I sing, but I'm not a singer. But then we separated for rotations, and I felt my soul split into 26 Horcruxes and spread across California. I felt weak. The constant daily stress of rotations loomed and my mental health waned. But we all kept in touch, texting tips like which preceptors to avoid, or best places to hide in the hospitals. I usually felt incompetent, but we all weathered the storm together. There were lows, but also certainly highs that kept me afloat. In my OB-GYN rotation, I saw a prescription that stated 50 Kegels a day, every day, forever. And later that same day, took the first picture of a new dad with his baby in the delivery room. Can't forget Brawley. That place spoke for itself. I always thought of Stanford as a fantasy land that shielded us from the real world. A car seat of sorts on the drive to medical knowledge. Vroom. The school's emphasis on mental health and wellness was not something I had experienced before. Emails for discussion groups, research on student wellness, and finally, dedicated mental health professionals for us. Also, I love the collaboration at Stanford and taking classes with MD students. So if anyone wants to work together in the future, well, attending MDs in a couple more years, give or take, let me know. I'm available. And as I leave the Stanford bubble and look for jobs, I see postings verbatim. We are looking for a PA capable of seeing patients from cradle to grave. And after I chuckle at the absurdity of such a post, I also question my own ability. Can I actually take care of patients? In 2017, my first month at Stanford, Paloma was on a panel at an event, and she told us a simple yet powerful phrase, "You belong." And I think about this more now than I care to admit. As I felt fantastically average my whole time at Stanford, I always fell back on this quote from her and convinced myself I do belong as a PA. We all sacrificed for our separate journeys here, but we probably lost some relationships along the way. Thanks to those family members, friends, dogs, cats, who dealt with the late nights, the tears and the fears. Special thanks to the preceptors who taught us everything they could for a month and then restarted again with another incompetent student with no end in sight. Professor Larson's word from the 2017 white coat ceremony for our class was savor. Savor the time, savor the experiences. I always thought this was an interesting word choice by her, maybe alluding to her love of wine, until I thought about how savory tastes are powerful and overwhelming at first, but continue to linger in your mouth for a time. Eventually, the physical sensation leaves, but the memory of that intense roller coaster feeling is now part of you. That's what I'm hoping is true for my experiences here. We've been on this roller coaster together. Some of us resisted the ride initially, standing in line wanting to leave, tugging on someone's sleeves to take you back to safety. We were terrified, but got on anyways. We belted in, listened to the instructions. Informed, but still nervous. Then we were off. 0 to 60 in what felt like seconds, but took 2.5 years. Now, the unknown is ahead. Some of us sitting together, others apart. But ultimately, still with one another. Take care of yourselves and each other. Thank you.
Dr. Arturo Molina, president of the Stanford Medicine Alumni Association, will now make remarks to our graduates. Dr. Molina.
Thank you, Dean Miner. Good afternoon. I am honored to celebrate this momentous occasion and congratulate this outstanding graduating class as you receive your MDs, PhDs, MD PhDs, and Master of Science degrees, including the inaugural Physician Assistant Studies program. As you graduate today, in the first ever virtual celebration, you are now official members of the Stanford Medicine Alumni Association. So welcome to SMAA. 37 years ago, I was the medical student speaker for my graduating class of 1983. Recently, I found the original speech I wrote on Stanford University medical record paper. Remember, no computers or iPads back then. In 1983, I welcomed and thanked our parents, family, friends, faculty, and staff by saying, "It is your celebration as much as ours, for without you, we would not be here today." So today, on behalf of the graduating students, I thank you for your unwavering support over the years. In 1983, I said, "This graduating class is uniquely prepared to tackle the challenges and problems medicine is facing." Back then, we worried about rising healthcare costs, healthcare inequities, and threat of nuclear war. Today, we still face many of the same challenges. Healthcare disparities, social injustice, racism, and hate crimes persist in our society. We cannot remain oblivious. We cannot go back to business as usual. Many of you joined the March for Social Justice last week and kneeled and stood together in solidarity. Thank you for using your voice to speak up. Always remember, in our profession, when someone cries, "Please, I can't breathe," we have the duty to help them. The challenges we face as we confront the global coronavirus pandemic represent transformative opportunities. Continue to learn from these experiences. Continue to be creative and resilient. Embrace your fear of the unknown. This is your calling and vocation. We cannot face this pandemic without you. Surround yourselves with collaborative colleagues who help each other. Some will become trusted lifelong friends. Be a good person. Be kind and respectful. Never compromise with integrity. Integrity is one of your most valuable possessions. To quote Barack Obama, "Listen to the truth inside yourself. Be curious. There's always a lesson to be learned from patients, clinical trials, research experiments, and life in general. Be humble. It is okay to say, 'I don't know.' Be a good mentor. Your trainees and mentees should inspire you as much as you inspire them. If you start doubting yourself, think about the essays you wrote for college, medical or graduate school. What is it that motivated you then? What is it that made you stick out from the rest? Stay true to that. Stay true to the dreamer in you. Continue to be the person who wants to make a difference." Again, welcome to the Stanford Medicine Alumni Association. Some of you might be leaving Stanford, but Stanford will not be leaving you. Stanford Medicine is here for a lifetime. You will always be part of the Stanford medical and scientific community. Please stay in touch and let us know how your careers are unfolding. Finally, I would like to extend my heartfelt best wishes to all of you. Remember, the degrees you earn today will serve as a means to your future goals. You are just getting started. As the future generation of innovators and leaders, I know you will make us all proud. Good luck and stay safe.
Thank you very much. This concludes the broadcast celebration for our graduates. Thanks to all who joined us in recognizing their momentous achievements. We share your pride and look forward to watching our graduates' careers blossom as they take on meaningful new challenges. Be safe, be well, and once again, congratulations.